Close to 10% of vehicles on the road in the US were made in Canada, but they're not at all completely Canadian products. The industry is so integrated between this country and our neighbors to the south that before a vehicle is assembled, the parts are estimated to have crossed the border up to 8 times. And it's not new. This plant in Windsor, Ontario has been making cars since 1928.
The trade that we have between Canada and the United States is fair trade. It's fair, free trade. We aren't the source of the angst.
I'd rather have it done in Detroit.
Well, Donald Trump says he wants the automobile industry moved back to the U.S. from Canada and Mexico. He's promised tariffs starting February 1st.
In 2018, the world watched as President Donald Trump set in motion a trade war with two of America's closest allies, Mexico and Canada. But how did these tariffs change the landscape of U.S. trade forever? Background on U.S. trade before the tariffs. Before the tariffs, U.S. trade with Mexico and Canada was largely governed by agreements designed to foster economic cooperation. But this peaceful trading relationship was about to face unprecedented challenges. U.S. exports to Mexico and Canada. Automotive parts, machinery, agricultural products. Mexico and Canada as top trading partners for the U.S. Trump's rationale for implementing tariffs. When President Trump announced tariffs on steel and aluminum, he called it a move to protect American jobs. But were these tariffs really about protectionism, or was there more to the story? Trump's desire to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S., claim of unfair trade practices, and the trade deficit with China, Mexico, and Canada. The steel and aluminum tariffs announcement of tariffs on steel, 25%, and aluminum, 10%, in March 2018. Justifications: national security concerns, protecting American industries. Immediate reactions from Canada and Mexico. When the U.S. imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, Canada and Mexico weren't just upset, they were outraged. And they weren't going to take it lying down. Canada's response: Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's statements. Retaliatory tariffs on U.S. products, e.g. agricultural products, steel. Canada's role in global trade, particularly with the U.S. too. Mexico's response: President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's reaction. Mexico's tariffs on U.S. products, including pork, cheese, and whiskey. Emphasis on Mexico's importance as a trade partner. The impact on U.S.-Mexico trade. As the tariffs took hold, U.S. farmers, manufacturers, and consumers were caught in the crossfire. Could the U.S. afford to alienate its southern neighbor, with whom it shares a vast trade relationship? Agriculture Mexico, as a major importer of U.S. agricultural products, pork, apples, dairy, etc. How tariffs affected prices and supply chains. Second, manufacturing impact on U.S. manufacturers who relied on Mexican imports for parts and materials. Disruption in industries like automotive manufacturing, where cross-border supply chains are integral. Third, economic ripple effects. U.S. border states like Texas and California bearing the brunt of trade disruptions, job losses, and shifting trade patterns. The impact on U.S.-Canada trade. For years, Canada was America's closest trade ally, but the tariff dispute threw that relationship into turmoil. How did this alter the dynamic between the two countries? Energy and natural resources. Canada's role as the U.S.'s largest foreign supplier of oil and natural gas. Tariffs on aluminum and steel affecting trade in the energy sector. Second, automotive industry, Canada's close involvement in U.S. automotive manufacturing. Impacts on automotive companies, price hikes, supply chain disruptions. 3. Retaliatory tariffs. Canada's retaliation targeting U.S. goods like whiskey, dairy products, and agricultural items. Strain on sectors reliant on trade with Canada. NAFTA renegotiation and USMCA hook. In the midst of the trade war, a new deal was struck. But was it really a victory for all parties, or just a reshuffling of old rules? 1. Renegotiating NAFTA trumps push to replace NAFTA with something that would be more favorable to the U.S. The political climate, Democrats, Republicans, and the implications of midterm elections. Second, USMCA agreement. Key provisions: agricultural exports, intellectual property protections, automotive manufacturing rules. How the USMCA aimed to address the concerns over tariffs and trade imbalances. Third, key differences between NAFTA and USMCA changes to rules of origin for cars. Increased access to Canadian dairy markets for U.S. farmers. Labor provisions and environmental standards. The impact on U.S.-Mexico trade. As the tariffs took hold, U.S. farmers, manufacturers, and consumers were caught in the crossfire. Could the U.S. afford to alienate its southern neighbor with whom it shared a multi-billion-dollar trade relationship? 1. Trade fluctuations. The tariffs caused an immediate reduction in U.S. exports to Mexico. Key sectors like agriculture were especially affected. U.S. pork and dairy industries, for example, suffered significant losses due to Mexican tariffs on their products. American auto manufacturers and steel producers faced higher costs due to the increase in tariffs on steel imports from Mexico. Trump's legacy on trade policy. The tariffs marked a key aspect of Trump's America First trade policy. His stance on trade shifted U.S. relations with many countries, including Mexico and Canada, leading to debates about the long-term viability of protectionist measures. So, after all the tariffs, renegotiations, and economic shifts, what remains of U.S. trade with Mexico and Canada? Has the landscape truly changed, or are we simply seeing the natural evolution of global commerce? Lasting changes in trade dynamics. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade landscape is vastly different from where it was before Trump's tariffs, with the USMCA creating new frameworks for trade. The relationships between the countries will continue to evolve, influenced by global economic trends and future leadership decisions. 2. The future of North American trade. As U.S. trade relations continue to evolve, the legacy of Trump's tariffs may linger. The U.S. is likely to remain engaged in global trade negotiations, but the lessons from the tariff era will shape future policies. In the end, the story of Trump's tariffs is not just about economic policies. It's about how trade agreements, diplomacy, and the shifting forces of globalization continue to shape the world we live in.